Cornerstone Church. Today's Wednesday, April 22nd. We're going into 5 weeks of quarantine and shelter in place. If you're like me, you're starting to get a little antsy, getting ready to come back together. Well, we got to keep pumping the brakes here. We're not at that place yet. We're not all coming back together yet. Even when we do start to come back together, we'll probably step it in place. Maybe starting with life groups meeting before we can all come back. So we're still weeks away from meeting together as a church. So that's kind of the bad news. And that's hard. We miss you guys. But here's the good news. Here's what I want to challenge you with. If you look back over the last 5 weeks of your life, what you and I have the opportunity to do is really see, without any doubt, what are the things that we go to for security. You can just look back at the last 5 weeks of your life when you have questions about job, questions about money, questions about God's purpose, questions about what's going on with COVID-19. What are the things that you and I have gone to for security? We have been given an opportunity like we've never had before to see, okay, who am I really? Who am I really? What do I really go to? Do I go to food? Do I go to spending? Do I go to just binge watching television and movies? Do I just dive into hobbies and interests? And while none of those things are wrong or bad in themselves, they do demonstrate for us exactly where we go when we are unsure. Jeremiah 2:13 is one of my favorite verses. That's where God says, listen, I have 2 things against my people. 1, they've forsaken me, the spring of living water. And 2, they've dug their own wells, broken cisterns that can't hold water. In other words, what he's saying is, look, I'm offering you full, abundant life. I am a spring of life, crystal clear, aquifer purified, 52 degrees, never-ending, refreshing water. You just need to come to me and drink. But instead, you go to these other things, these man-made, temporary, ultimately unsatisfying things that you have to keep going back to and going back to. Broken cisterns that can't hold water. They hold stagnant, nasty water that just seeps into the ground. So even though we may be getting a little bit tired of this quarantine shelter in place, I think it's provided a wonderful opportunity for us to see ourselves truly, to really see ourselves. What are the things we go to when we're unsure about the future? I want to point us back to where we were this weekend in Luke 18. I want to highlight the end of Luke 18 again. This blind beggar, man, I can't get him out of my head. Just as someone that was in a very similar predicament, he couldn't see what was going on around him physically. He could not see. He didn't quite know what God's purposes were. He didn't know what his next move should be, but he knew one thing, and that was that Jesus was within earshot. Jesus was within earshot, so he cried out to him. It says, as he drew near to Jericho, that's Jesus, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging, and hearing a crowd going by, he inquired what this meant. They told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by, and he cried out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And those who were in front rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stopped and commanded him to be brought to him. And when he came near, he asked him, what do you want me to do for you? He said, Lord, let me recover my sight. And Jesus said to him, recover your sight. Your faith has made you well. And immediately he recovered his sight and followed him, glorifying God. And all the people, when they saw it, gave praise to God. This blind man, very similar to us, he didn't know what was coming down the road. He didn't know what the future held for him, but he knew one thing, and that was that Jesus was within earshot. So I want to encourage you, church, to remember Jesus is within earshot. I know there are a lot of other things that we go to. I never get bored. I can stay busy doing anything. I'll read, I'll go fishing, I'll go for a walk, I'll tie flies, I'll play games, I'll video people, talk to people, I'll watch TV and movies. I'll do any of that. So I'm never bored. But what do those things say about me? Those things often indicate where I go for security and comfort in times of insecurity and discomfort. So I challenge you to examine yourselves as well, and remember that the only true satisfaction, the only true joy comes from knowing that Jesus is within earshot and crying out to him. So would you do that with me this week? Let's cry out to Jesus. Let's call out to him for our satisfaction, our comfort, for all of our needs to be met. We love you, church. We're looking forward to seeing you guys whenever we're able to be together again. Until then, keep reaching out to one another. Send each other cards, videos, letters, texts. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.